Hey guys, if you love QF's content on our free Sundays and Thursday sessions, then please visit our Patreon page in the description and sub to the Black Kluge tier or higher for full access to not only our bonus weekly Tuesday night shows and the alternate Sunday shows you've been missing, but also to the exclusive episodes not available to the lower tiers. It's roughly the price of one coffee a month, and nobody at Starbucks will make you laugh like we do for that kind of scratch. In addition, when you sub to the Black Kluge tier, you'll get 2 weeks advance access to each Thursday session on Patreon before it makes it to YouTube.
Just do me a favor. If 5 years from now I was right, you tell me. All right? Thank you.
If we're still speaking.
Jeez, he's such a... See, even that, he's nasty. Maybe I'll stop talking to you.
Yeah, I'll stop talking. Well, I don't threaten people.
No. And what's so great about it is that if I met you in person, you wouldn't have the balls to come up and say that to me. Because I'd sock you in the fucking head. And probably deck you.
When I was a little kid, yeah, he just slowed it down. When I was a little kid, my dad would take me to ball games. I would sit there with my hands over my head. I was so scared of getting hit by a ball.
I was going to look for a Nikki Hilton. But you see, those good-looking rich girls, they don't go for a guy like me because they don't need my money.
But how, it's my mind, not my penis, that I have to train.
Yeah, I'm working on training my penis. That's where I've been going wrong. That's why I lost half my money. I can't believe my penis. Train the mind.
And all you do is mooch off of people. You do nothing. You're a big homo.
That's not entirely true.
What do you do, really?
I'm bisexual and I don't mooch off everybody.
The single best thing about going out with Howard is that we get courtside seats to the Knicks game.
Yeah, we loved it.
Damn!
When did you have your interviews? During the day?
How am I supposed to find a new job? Send out smoke signals?
So, anybody would leave that job that you left with us. And the one thing I don't respond well to is humiliation. I don't respond well to it at all. You know, I want to be told what a shithead I am. I don't want to, you know, those days are over. I've suffered enough in this business. I don't need to find out what a shithead I am.
Max, but look at your hair. I mean, every curl is manufactured. It's terrific. And you're a radio guy. You're not even on TV.
I am on TV. I'm on demand, and I was on E for 11 years.
Yeah.
It was the #1 show on E for
It was exciting. You and Joan Rivers, I couldn't get enough of that.
I mean, Gary's got wife and kids. And if I leave, who the fuck is going to hire him?
Just help me out. Turn out the lights so I don't have to pay the electric bill every minute. It makes me sick.
The hair is real, and I don't color. Don't get too frisky.
I mean, if I was to give it a good yank, you wouldn't know.
No, it wouldn't all fall out. No, I have my own hair.
And you dye it, obviously.
I do not color it. As you can see,
What?
I have some gray in it, but no, I'm very blessed. My
Howard,
grandfather.
look me in the eye and repeat that.
I swear on a stack of Bibles that I don't color my hair.
It's that 3 months into this relationship that you told him, Howard, this relationship is all about you.
Oh, I think I knew that from day one, but I'm okay with it. It's all about him, Ed. We watch TV, what he wants to watch. We eat. We wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We go.
Yeah, good. Always glad to come back and talk Colford.
Well, I did ask Ben if he wanted part of the redo of the Quivers of Life thing, and he said, "I don't know that I could sit through another 6 hours of that."
Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
I was just thumbing through the book, which I haven't looked at in a while, and
yeah,
different things stand out to me now as I flip through it that probably didn't stand out to me the last time we did this. So maybe I'll think it over.
Well, you have a standing invitation anytime you want to jump in, because we only, like I said, we've got way more of the Howard Stern. We just got more clips that I've found over the years that did detail things about idiosyncrasies that regarding the book and news articles and what have you, and things that promo stuff that we didn't cover the first time around. So anytime you want to jump in, just let me know, and I'll keep you informed of where we are in the book too, because there's certain parts you may want to be more a part of than other things. At any rate, guys, if you are following along in the book when you left off, because I don't have a title for this particular episode, we were on page 82, near the bottom after the Beaver Breaks mention, although we've actually got a clip of Beaver Breaks to play to show you exactly how bad it was, and that right around the bottom of page 82. So the clip is called "First Time Anyone Will Compare Stern's Lame Bits to Zeppelin."
I don't know how the God weather forecast thing started. It was just another one of those ideas I had. It comes to you in the shower, and I thought it was funny to do the weather is God, because don't forget, now that doesn't seem so outrageous, but nobody spoke of God. There was a radio station up in Vermont called WGOD, the Voice of God. It was the Goddard College radio station. My cousin told me about it, who went to Goddard. And they stopped saying that. I mean, you couldn't mention God. You don't make jokes about God.
So, except if you're a religious program, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, what?
That makes no sense.
He's talking about the year 1981, right?
Yeah, yeah. Certainly, that wasn't an issue to talk about God. I think what low IQ Stern is not understanding. It's using God as satire. Doing God as satire also had already happened in that George Burns film, Oh God.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was that big of a stretch.
So, of course, that in my mind, that was like, well, who's your weather forecaster? God, this is God. And I'd slow my voice down, and I just drag my thumb on the reel-to-reel tape and do this God character, and it caught on. But like everything else, I don't believe in doing things on a regular basis. Like I would do it. I did it for a couple of months, I guess, in my career. But everyone always wrote about, wow, he has God as his weather forecaster. They like it. And I would talk back to the tape. I would go in every morning and write down a little.
You know, I also clipped this because he's a complete liar. How many times did he do, the Homo Cop, or like, sorry, the doing the Homo Room, or Out of the Closet Stern? He kept doing bits until he ran them into the ground. The Sibian later on. He loves repeating things. He's worse than Saturday Night Live at that point.
Agent Marty Gold.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Little routine, and then I'd say, Howard, this is God, and then I'd leave some space for me to go, oh, hi, God, what's happening? And, and then we'd have these dialogues with God.
Did he just hear Ray in his voice?
Yeah, it's funny. He just lowered his voice as God, and then when he spoke back, his voice went up.
Yeah.
God. And people thought it was outrageous. Everything was outrageous.
One of the features that I liked a lot was the feature he called AccuGod Weather. And he would do this big voice with sound effects, and it would be like the voice of God. And it would be kind of a takeoff on a weather report. I mean, the weather was like the least of it. But it was very entertaining, and it got a lot of reaction from the audience. And Howard wanted to drop it. And I convinced him to keep it a little bit longer because people really enjoyed it. And this too is what happens, when you do something every day. When you're a disc jockey, you really get sick of playing Stairway to Heaven.
Well, first of all, I doubt it was the same thing. But the other thing is, that sounds like another person having to tell Howard to do his own show a different way because he doesn't know best, and he doesn't know enough to not just do something new and then throw it away. And if you don't have a sense of schedule, let's say, or a regular sort of theme that no one knows what to expect, then you may not get a regular listener.
Yeah. I wanted to be certain about this, but this is from the book. There were dramatizations of the weather forecast. Joe played a robot that pondered meteorological readings supplied by weatherman Phil Rodent, who pretended to be speaking from a wind-torn mountaintop while being swept away. So this whole making your weather be theater.
Yeah.
Joe from Chicago was already doing that at Howard's first radio job.
Yes.
So he's not he didn't invent, say, taking the mundane.
No.
And making it wild. But it's funny. I was just thinking. This popped in my head. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this has come up before. This popped in my head yesterday, and I was thinking, we always hear Howard had to leave Detroit because his station went country. It changed formats. He had to leave.
Right.
But this is a man who hated playing music to begin with.
Yes.
What would he care if he was playing country music or anything? He didn't want to play music to begin with.
Yeah.
It's just it's a funny little reason that I have to leave because I'm not playing this kind of music that I hate.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm being forced to play this kind of music that I hate.
Yeah. The next clip is first the woofers go, then the tweeters.
This is God. Howard, I'm bored with being God.
Early in the morning, when most of us are still sleeping, there's a madman loose on the Baltimore-Washington airwaves.
I will make light rain.
Rain?
Maybe a little bit of snow.
Have mercy.
That'll get ya.
Have mercy, Your
This
Holiness.
is God on DC 101.
Have mercy on my soul.
Oh my Lord! I mean
that's in the closet Stern we're listening to.
Yeah, pretty much. When I listen to these things, it's really hard to go back to those years in my head and try to think of what radio people sounded like. But what I do know that at the time, I can't imagine anybody growing up listening to this and finding it entertaining.
Well, what he would tell us is his voice was that way because the management made him so nervous.
Right.
That his voice became high pitched.
Right.
Which is
so he was
ridiculous.
High pitch how?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. There's a certain amount of that, I'm certain, but I think that was just pure him. So the next one is called cross-dressing is a bit. Where have I seen this before?
We had a good time the last time we did a live show, and this is going to be a good one. This time we're going to be prepared.
Oh, that'll be unusual.
Last time we got down there, we were winging the whole thing, but this time we got it all prepared.
You're going to wear your PJs again?
No, I'm going to wear a dress.
Oh.
And Freddie's going to wear a dress, too.
I ain't wearing no dress.
Yes, you are. It's part of the routine.
That's not part of my job.
It's just show business, man. You got to wear a dress down there.
I ain't wearing no dress. I ain't being no sissy.
Hey, look, man, when you were hired, you said you would do stuff like that.
I never said I'll wear no dress.
You, listen to me. I'm going to say this once. I don't want any grief. You are wearing a dress down at the Wax Museum next week.
I am not wearing a dress.
I'll talk to you about this later. It's a bit, and you said you would do it.
I just wanted people to really hear how bad this could get, and I'm sure they already know.
And this is the invention of reality radio we're listening to, with Fred obviously doing a character.
Yeah.
But pretending he's not doing a character.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is
and the
called...
bit is us two obviously straight guys would never be wearing a dress.
Right.
So on the radio, we're going to wear a dress. That's the big difference.
Right. And like we all get to see this. Exactly. The next one is Wig gets to #1 in D.C.
I was the #1 disc jockey in Washington, D.C. I had an 8 share, which was unheard of in my town, and I did it in under a year. And I'd come off a horrible experience. I turned #1, and the guy who was the general manager there, Golf Labar, seemed to hate me and resent me for the success. He'd even pull me into meetings and say, "Why are they writing about you in the newspaper? Why aren't they writing about me and my 5-point plan? And how I figured out how to have this radio station. Wouldn't pay me, horrible contract negotiations. Meanwhile, this is horseshit." He was jealous of me.
Just jealous guy.
All right, it is 27 past 6 o'clock with your pals, How Weird Robin and the muzzled earth dog Fred. I thought our boss would break down by now and allow Fred to talk on the air.
There's a stalemate in the negotiations, as they say.
Yeah. He's like the only guy in the world who doesn't like Earth Dog Fred on the air. Everyone I keep running into says, "Where's Earth Dog, man? We want to hear him."
Really?
But he, you see, our boss doesn't understand comedy. He understands ratings.
Right.
Okay? If the ratings are big, it's funny.
Yes.
If the ratings are small, it's not funny.
Right.
Now, here's the thing I can read. Our ratings are big.
Okay. I don't hear nerves in his voice. I just hear a really whiny bitch.
Yeah. Here's a better... He said he had an 8 share, which I just didn't believe. It says, in a business where a small improvement in the ratings is considered successful, he inherited a show with a 2.6% of the morning listening audience and immediately increased it to a 5.2 share in the spring of 1981, then to a 5.6 in the summer. I don't see anything about an 8 share in here, but I would say that, first of all, it's probably not it's not unheard of, because news stations, whatever the news station was, I'm sure, and he probably wasn't the #1 ratings. He was probably the #1 personality ratings.
Possibly.
So he wasn't beating the news station. But anyway, it's funny when he would throw out and say it's never been done before, no one could ever expect anything like that. You can usually find he's making that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what the hell does he have to say about it?
I don't know, Howard.
I mean, I don't want to get into a major argument with them about this, but really, what business is it of theirs?
Okay, and the next one's called Denise Oliver sticking up for Stern versus Goff.
Goff, I think of a cigar in one of his orifices, and it probably wouldn't be his mouth. Again, Goff had a reputation in business of not being the kind of guy who played fair or played by the rules. So I really found it kind of contradictory that he would hire an air personality to break all the rules, and when he did, wouldn't applaud it. So Goff, if you're listening, light the cigar and go ahead and stick it in.
I remember one time he came to me, and he chomped on a big cigar all the time. And he came to me one day and he said, "Howard wasn't funny today." And I said, "Yeah, today's show wasn't as funny as the others this week." He said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, "Nothing." He said, "Do you have any idea how lucky you are that he's funny the other 4 days of the week?" I mean, nobody can relate to how much material people who are on the air put out, let alone doing 5 hours a day. At that time, he did 4 hours a day. But, doing that much live, mostly off the top of your head, I mean, it's amazing. And it amazes me to this day, the quality and the quantity that Howard and Robin came up with.
Mostly off the top of his head. I'd say, anything that wasn't pre-recorded, obviously they did in studio, but there is so little preparation in whatever they did. And I'm sure that Howard actually did quite a bit of work comparatively over the years, early on than later, but it still was, let's just talk about nonsense essentially and hope something sticks. It wasn't. I have a list of bullet points today, the things that I want to discuss, and then riffing. It was whatever comes out of your head, and that was it. And then whatever I can get from the other people in the room, perfect.
Yeah, and he was playing music at the time too, so it's not like 5 hours was all just him spitballing.
Yeah. No kidding. The next one, Stern calls Goff a skinflint.
Maybe take a quick phone call, huh?
Okay, yeah, we haven't talked to anybody in a while.
Hi.
Hi, Howard.
Hi.
I wanted to find out how you came by getting on DC 101. I mean, did you have to rehearse or try out or?
God forbid.
He was dropped by a plane.
How did I get on DC 101? Well, it was a miracle, to tell you the truth. My station went country in Detroit. They were playing Beverly Hillbillies music. And, I've been in radio a while. I've been doing it a long time. So, about, 4 or 5 years?
Something like that.
So did you move down here and then get the job, or did they hear you and think you were so great in Detroit?
Oh, they heard me and thought I was great, boy. Let me tell you. Of course. General manager here thinks I'm wonderful. All I know is I get dirty looks from the management here every time I walk up there. Hey, Moneybags. Hey, there he is. Let's get him on the air. What did you?
Moneybags here?
His Moneybags there? Come on over here, buddy.
I haven't seen him. He must have snuck in today.
No, the management here.
I bet you could get any price you wanted if you threatened to leave. I bet you could. They would.
Whoa. Hey, you hear that, LeBar? Any price I want if I threaten to leave. Well, then I'm leaving.
The reason why I'm playing these clips, guys, is essentially because we got to do with the bridge between DC 101 and when he goes to WNBC. And there's a massive, I'm going to mention it again, maybe a couple times, unfortunately. There's a huge hypocrisy in the way he gave Stuttering John shit for leaving the way he did. But by not telling him and not giving us a chance to, see what we could do, he signed basically with WNBC and told them and didn't tell DC 101 anything, because he had signed an extension, like a year's extension, and the pay he claimed it wasn't good. So in the interim, he was just a lame duck essentially for DC 101. And eventually what he did was something I'm certain he tried to do from the time he signed with Sirius, which was play a bunch of bits to hopefully get fired, knowing that they were, like the shit spectacular or whatever, the shit weighing with hypoteric later on and stuff, that he thought, what's the best thing to do here is for them to fire me to claim full salary, because they have to, not have to do any work for a year and a half, and then I could just promote Sirius that entire time and get paid for doing it.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Yeah. So
it's funny too. The premise that he gave that woman was, they heard me and brought me out. But then why did you have to introduce the fact that your station went country? Yeah. So he starts off with one premise. Well, my station went country, and then, they heard me and they brought me over. He can't be honest at all.
Well, and the other thing was he was a failure at DC 10. Sorry, at WW4, and basically the station changed formats because they were doing so poorly. Now,
they were like the number 4 whatever rock station in a 4 rock station market.
Yeah.
And he couldn't compete, and we know that he would have stayed in Detroit if another station would have hired him, but
yes,
they weren't interested.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Agent Howard?
Oh, don't leave.
Uh-oh, here he goes again. You should never say something like that to Howard. He always takes suggestions, you know? He's just a really weird guy. You say anything to him and he does it.
Oh, no.
You've done it. You've ruined the show. Now look what you did. I can't believe this. And here I am stuck. I'm not a top 40 DJ. You know, what am I going to do? Hey, Howard.
Oh, Howard, please come.
Yes, everybody clap your hands if you want Howard to come back. Okay, come on.
She's no more comfortable now.
She's far less comfortable. Yeah.
40 years later, she's no more comfortable being left unattended for a minute.
Yeah. And we, you know, it's during the summer. I know you don't have Sirius anymore, but during the summer, they do a thing called summer school. So they'll get certain members of the staff and give them, I'd say, an hour to just talk to them as if they're a special guest. So it'll be Gary and Rasan, as your favorite. What did you call him? Easily triggered Rasan?
Easily triggered Rasan, yeah.
So, by the way, who got let go from the wrap-up show? He's now doing something else completely. He's no longer, they've given it back to John Hine and Gary, the wrap-up show.
Oh, I didn't even know he was handling it himself.
Yeah, he was. Gary and Rasan were doing the wrap-up show, but John Hine had been demoted. Yeah, because someone had called in when what was her name? Kelly. I can't remember who it was. It was Mary McCormick's husband. Supposedly was cheating on her with not Kelly Clarkson, but somebody. And John Hine didn't cut off the call, and so Mary McCormick got really pissed off at him and at the show, and then he basically John Hine had to. He had to suffer the consequences. But what they did was, so Robin got interviewed, and she got her little hour to speak, and she's so breathy, and she's so she kills so much time in the way she speaks. And I don't know if it's the chemo or just age. I'd say it's a combination of both. But you can see why she had to be taken off the news.
Yeah. Oh, I always maintained that. Yeah. That Howard was just saw it as a huge liability. He was always afraid of having her put him on the spot to comment on something he didn't want to comment on.
Oh, yeah.
She was, wrong all the time because she didn't read a paragraph ahead to see what she was about to say next.
Yeah, and as a result, during the interviews, she can't speak until at least an hour has gone. And recently, he interviewed Aubrey Plaza. You know who she is?
No.
She's from Parks and Rec, and she's in a number of other projects. But she's a staple of late night television. So she's on all those shows, Kimmel and stuff. She's got a ton of projects lined up. She's constantly working. At any rate, he did an hour with her, and it was one of the worst interviews I've ever heard in my life. Top 5 worst interviews with Stern. People were talking about it, in the Reddit and what have you. And he didn't do the victory lap he normally does. And in less than an hour, because it only took an hour, Robin was allowed to chime in. That's how bad it was. He didn't do the typical move of, no, Robin, you don't get to speak until the guest is gone. So he was flailing. So he needed anything he could, and because she wouldn't really answer anything. Let's keep going a little bit more.
You clap louder. He hears us. I think he's coming back. Come back, Howard. Everybody wants you to come back. Howard, would you get back here, please? I mean, we're begging Howard. Howard, we're on our knees. Boy, you're really.
All right, I'm back.
Okay.
It didn't do any good. I didn't get a dime.
Oh.
The guy, the president of the station is. I better word this diplomatically.
Yes, please do.
Asking him for a raise is like squeezing a brick for water.
I wanted to get first.
I wanted to get some helium in here today. I couldn't even get that.
Yeah, because you couldn't naturally get his voice higher.
Yeah, you don't need. Yeah, is that what you require to get that voice?
Exactly. Next one is called Birth of the Birthday Shows. It's really short.
This is very nice. This is very nice. Robin, I tell you, a big party, you know. But what ended up happening is Robin would plan the show, and a lot of famous people would stop by.
The normal trajectory for most kids is by the time they get in their early teens and then like full teens, they don't, outside of your sweet 16, if you're a girl, they don't make a big deal of it anymore. You get embarrassed. You don't really want, you know, it's not a childish atmosphere anymore. All of a sudden you're embarrassed, or you'll get a cake and you'll get presents and stuff like that. But that's about it. You don't typically, as a 13 or 14-year-old, go, you know, where's my party?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and you don't typically, as a male, fantasize about being the homecoming queen either.
No. Now it just occurred to me. Then didn't he go to L.A. to when Jimmy Kimmel's baby was in the hospital and demand say I was gonna, where's my party? There's a trail, you know, that starts from childhood.
Yeah,
modern day.
That wasn't an on-air bit, as he might try to dismiss this as. This was just entertainment. But you know, if I remember, whenever he would enter a new market, it was like, "Hey, can you make my birthday a day off for the kids? Can you, you know, make my birthday a whatever?" So, you know, so his production company is called 112. That's his birthday. He's obsessed with his birthday.
Yeah.
Whenever he started at Sirius, he demanded 112 days per year of work because he's obsessed with his own birth date.
Yes. At the numerology, just, you know, it's brutal. But the other thing was, he talked about how awesome they all were. He couldn't sell the last birthday bash. He tried, you know, to
right.
And I just found a clip, actually. It involved Benji and his psychiatrist, and, you know, you shouldn't be talking about me to your psychiatrist. That berating, sorry. And but then in the middle of it, he says, you know, yes, the birthday bash will be free. Yes, a lot of networks wanted it, but, you know, we decided to release it for free. Yeah. And he said no one was paid for it. Like, we didn't pay guests. There's no way they didn't pay Robert Downey Jr. to show up.
Well, you know, they timed it. They rescheduled Howard's birthday to time it to the Super Bowl. Yeah, so those guests would not have been there for Howard's birthday, but they had lost their on demand, and I think that they thought in demand. Sorry, and they thought that this would be the new thing. You know, we've invested in this location. This is the new Howard. No more Sibians, no more topless girls. It's nothing but celebrity bonanzas. Mm-hmm. And so he decided, you know what, I could win an Emmy Award for this, but I'd be happy with a Webby Award. So let's just give it out for free.
Well, when he mentioned the networks that were interested, he said Comedy Central, who he blasted for being, quote unquote, infamously cheap over the years. And no one else, like, he didn't really mention them. He just kind of, you know, like 10 networks were interested. If 10 networks were interested, name them. He couldn't.
Yeah.
And so it was clear that just the demand wasn't there, and he didn't anticipate that.
You know, there's probably all kinds of rights issues too. You probably didn't have the rights to have Purple Rain performed on television. You know, you have probably had it for Sirius and their website, but you probably have to go and relicense everything. It was probably a big nightmare.
Yeah. The next clip is called the Air Florida Bullshit Primer. Now, some people, it's been told on the air a number of times. This is a longer clip, but I'm including it because Dave Grohl is quoted and David Brenner are both quoted as getting the story wrong. And he has propagated the story. At least they admit that it never happened. But he was happy letting people think it did happen the way people reported hearing it.
That's lying by omission.
Yes, I think so.
Washington Post, January 14th, 1982.
Think tank member Harry Cole.
It was an awful day in Washington because it was a blizzard, and there had been a big metro accident with fatalities in the subway system. Then the plane went down on the 14th Street Bridge, and it was just awful. The story goes, as I understand it, that Howard, as part of a bit on the air, either called or suggested he ought to call the Air Florida ticket agency and ask how much it would cost to get a one-way ticket to the 14th Street Bridge. And my hunch is there's a certain element of urban legend to the whole thing.
Urban legend indeed, as evidenced by Foo Fighters frontman Dave Grohl and comedian David Brenner.
You know, I remember Howard from when he was in the Washington, D.C. area. I grew up in Virginia, just outside of D.C. And I remember him being on the radio when I was young back there. And I think the most memorable moment for him then was just after we had this plane crash disaster in D.C. It was a horrible tragedy. And the next day, Howard called up Air Florida and asked how much a one-way ticket to the 14th Street Bridge was, which was so brutal that I don't know if anyone else in the world could have the balls to say something like that on the radio. And I think he was immediately fired. I'm not.
See, this is the, okay, now Dave, first of all, at the time was a kid, so you can't trust, and, you can't trust, certainly you can't trust philandering David Grohl, I guess. It's recently in the news for that. Yeah. But David Brenner, who's a comedian, and again, it should know better. David Brenner was a comedian who not only would itemize his jokes and put them in a card catalog system the same way the library used to work, that like the Dewey Decimal System. He was he has it recalled as Howard said he called Air Florida, but that never happened. So
right,
like I said, it's just one of those things where what do they call that? Stolen valor, like stolen comedy, stolen balls, I guess.
And I'm certain that Howard didn't come up with that one-liner of how much for a one-way flight to the 14th Street Bridge.
Right.
He doesn't think in one-liner terms like that.
No way.
But I don't remember hearing much of him in D.C. after that. I just remember hearing that and thinking, this dude has got balls the size of the 14th Street Bridge.
I had a concert in Washington, D.C., and I was in the back of the limousine with my manager, and we were going to the venue, and the driver had the radio on. There was this guy talking. I was semi-listening, and Steve and I were in the back, and we were talking. And then I heard him say, well, you know, there was that plane crash. There was. A plane had gone and crashed into the Potomac. And this guy on the radio calls up the airline, and he says, I just want to get the price. What does the flight cost from Dulles Airport to the 14th Street Bridge, which is where the plane went down? I went, oh my, that is the worst joke, the darkest joke I ever heard, but one of the funniest. I said, who is that guy? To the driver. He said, oh, his name's Howard Stern. He's crazy, you know? And I said to Steve, I said, write that name down. We got to remember it. If we're ever here again, I got to meet this guy and I got to do his show because that's a one-of-a-kind brain.
You have no idea. Poor Brenner wasted so much time championing Howard. And then go ahead.
Did he say he was on his way to the event he was performing at?
I'd say he was on his way to the airport, or he was leaving, basically.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I thought he was saying that he was okay, because I thought that happens at night. Howard's on in the morning.
Well, yeah, and so he did say, of course, I was half listening.
Yeah, and I also love that he had to take a limousine. Why couldn't you just take a cab?
Yeah.
Stories like these have for years eclipsed the real truth. Simply put, the Air Florida phone call never happened.
Oh, and by the way, guys, they had re-released the history of Howard Stern and played it again, but I guarantee they edited it. They edited the shit out of it because there's no way they would have allowed this much honesty years later. And as you said, I don't think they knew how honest they were being.
Yeah, no, they didn't. I mean, and they don't mention Allison throughout the entire history of Howard Stern, which is crazy when you think about it, because she was such a big part of his persona.
Yep.
Not to mention the airtime. You know, their arguments were always really funny, and she was what allowed him basically to get away with a lot of stuff, because you go, oh, he's harmless, he's married, he's a married guy, he's not going to actually do anything, and it's crazy to think that she's cut from the history.
Well, and I'm certain that was a demand of hers with the divorce. Right. I don't want my voice on the airways ever again, even in replay. I'm sure she insisted on that.
Yeah, right.
And in fact, it wouldn't surprise me if she insisted on it and Howard insisted on it as well.
as well. Yeah, right.
I mean, if he's whitewashing Artie out of it, and it only took him, I'm going to say, a year and a half before he started bitching about alimony. Like he after the divorce, for immediately announcing the separation, he goes, "Oh, this is a really, we were just crying all day and everything." And then a year and a half later, I can't believe what the government makes divorced men pay in their divorces. It was all of the money he lost.
I always maintained that if he hadn't been going through his separation from Allison, Jackie would have gotten the money he wanted, and they would have stuck together.
There's a couple things at play. We discussed it a little bit already. Jackie didn't quite understand that Howard was not getting the money he asked for in new contracts, like a subsequent 5-year. Like basically, Howard. I think we played a little of it. Mel Karmazin was already was trying to get him to sign another extended contract on top of his existing one, which ended in 2005. So he was trying in 2001 or so to get him to sign again for some kind of money.
Okay.
Or perhaps it is in the contract that he signed to last till 2005, he didn't get the money that he was expecting. Like he didn't get an increase from his previous salary.
Okay.
And I think that's exactly why. That was the motivation for them to seek more money elsewhere. Don shopping him around to XM and then Sirius, of course, and Howard realizing, okay, that's the top of the earnings mountain. I've reached the height, because you don't just, and he goes, and it wasn't a money thing. I didn't go to Sirius because, I could have retired. Well, then why didn't you? If you didn't need more money, and why did you go to a place that would pay you 5 times what you were making at the radio station per year?
Yeah. I know this is off topic, and but it drives me crazy that he was able to get away with claiming that the reason he had to leave terrestrial radio, people forget this, in 2004 he was saying this, is because George Bush was personally going after him for supporting George Bush's opponent. He was going to go and punish Howard Stern.
Yeah.
And he was making this a free speech thing. He's saying, if this can happen to me, it can happen to any of you. He was saying to the journalists.
Just nonsense.
And it was, at the time he had not yet, it was like 2 months later, he announced he was going to Sirius.
Yeah.
But it was all just First Amendment. I'm the First Amendment guy, and they're going after me.
Yep.
Stern staffers set the record straight.
The Air Florida crash has always been reported incorrectly. There was never any controversy. I was never accused of making fun of the Air Florida crash. There was no controversy when I was in the air. I was never brought into management. I talked about the Air Florida crash, and I made a imaginary phone call in my thing, and I went, oh, what is this going to be, a regular stop on the 14th Street Bridge? This airplane had crashed into the bridge. Nobody ever complained about it. It wasn't meant as a sarcastic comment. It was meant as an indictment of the airlines.
So it was sarcastic. It wasn't meant as sarcasm. I mean, it was satire. The next one is, it's a really short clip, Hill Street Jews nonsense. This is just like a short clip of him doing the bit.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, let me have some reverb here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will attempt at the last minute to put together the exciting story of Hill Street Jews, those Jewish cops who wish they could have been doctors. Hill Street Joe, all day long I'd sit on my tush and slurp on chicken soup. I wouldn't have to work hard. I'd take a bribe, hey what the heck, and wear gold chains around my neck.
Now, Fred would be commenting later on after this saying, that was a part of our bread and butter with these song parodies. Well, this isn't a song parody that really, I mean, it is, and it is and it isn't. But they did crutch on them so badly back in the day. And they continued to do them for quite a while until I think they realized these are pretty lame. We should stop this. Dr.
Weird Al Yankovic was was coming up on MTV, and I really think that's why he went with How Weird, and that's why he put out an album. I think he thought, song parodies, the 80s, look out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Incidentally, do you recall, this is just something that was an observation that Len, one of our co-hosts, had made in a recent episode, when they would replay his really old stuff, like before K-Rock and earlier than K-Rock, when they would replay it, do you recall them? He says that he made them slow it down so that it sounded like he had a lower voice.
I seem to recall him and Scott Salem having that conversation. I mean, maybe this has become urban legend, but I think that I've heard him say that.
I'll have to look it up because Scott would be in charge of that whole process, like making sure that the repeat material gets potted, like it's slowed down I don't know, not half speed, but a quarter speed or something, just enough to make him sound like Dirty Harry. Okay, the next one is discussing Allison's miscarriage. I thought this audio was completely gone from the records, and there's only a little bit of a segment of this on YouTube, and I was looking through my archives desperately for it, and they included it on this, so I was really lucky to find it.
All the weather, now here's God.
Your Holiness. Hello, Howard.
There they are.
I see your wife had a miscarriage.
Oh, don't bring that up, God. Please, that's way too personal. Please.
You tried to have a baby and you failed.
Oh, man.
Now the baby is with me.
Oh, this is cruel.
Boy, what a loser you are.
Wow, he's getting awfully personal this morning.
Hey, God, me and my wife are trying to have another baby, you know.
A real man would have done it right the first time, Howard.
Oh, for God's sake.
It will be pleasant today, rain tomorrow.
It's my kid up there.
This is God with the weather on DC 101.
You're all wrong, God. You're completely out of line this morning.
I don't think we should be talking about this.
I went to the doctor with my wife. I got to tell you that. And it was an awful experience because the doctor walks out, and there's your kid, your beautiful child. And he's no bigger than the size of an aspirin. Howie Jr., no bigger than the size of an aspirin.
Was it a boy?
It was a boy, yes.
Oh.
And then you look at him, and he's in the formaldehyde jar. And I said to my wife, honey, don't be upset that Howard Jr.'s in a formaldehyde jar. We're going to take him out of this office. We'll bring him home, and next week we'll bring him to the zoo in a stroller.
Oh, please.
I don't want to talk about it, Robin.
I really think you need counseling.
I'm going to play a record. DC 101. We've got some great tunes for you this morning. And then Robin will analyze me when we get back from this song. Very sad music. Not that, Fred. Play something else, please.
Okay. The reason, I mean, I wanted that out there so someone heard exactly how bad it could get. Pat Cooper, I remember in that one documentary, I can't remember which one, maybe Shut Up and Listen or something like that.
Yeah, Shut Up and Listen.
Where he says he's lucky his wife didn't leave him after that bit.
He is lucky. And it's proof that it wasn't painful to him. Because he wouldn't have talked about it. First of all, he wouldn't have talked about it at all if it was painful to him.
Yeah.
In fact, it made him happy that he wasn't going to be a father. I think he didn't want to be one.
No.
And this was his way of gloating.
Oh yeah, big time. And the next one, a clueless Robin indicts Howard inadvertently.
What I think Howard Stern is a person who actually was himself on the air. Not only did people talk in code, they pretended to be things they weren't. The guy who used to come on the radio and either he was the fast-talking DJ, he acted as if he was cool. He wasn't cool in high school. But on the radio, he pretended he was cool. And, then you'd meet him and he's some big fat slob that you'd never want to be with. So people got to pretend that they were something other than themselves. Howard actually came on the air and he put out the challenge to be yourself on the air. And I think that was much more important than the language. And that's what was so powerful.
Let's see, he's lied about his hair, He lied about his nose surgery, his lipo. He lied about his movie. His entire movie was a lie. His voice is a lie. His clothing, like everything that he put on, his love, quote unquote, love of rock and roll, his love of music is a lie. He covered up his divorce. He covered up dating Beth. He lied about the origin story. He lied about just about everything, including how things went with Jackie, Billy, everything.
Yeah. You know, you always have to remember, too, that Robin had only worked at one station before this and was only in radio for a couple months. So anytime she goes and talks about how, you go and meet these guys and they're not, it's all her retelling what she's heard from Howard, the radio business is like. That's her view. That's her and Fred. That's their worldview of radio, is what Howard tells them radio is like.
I think technically she worked at two places beforehand, but she only worked at one for one day before jumping ship.
Yeah. Okay. Right. In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I seem to recall. Like
everybody thinks of that as the cool spot.
Yeah, exactly. The next one, Fartman, was a total ripoff. Of course, we had to mention this because there's very little mention of it here.
Howard's greatest characters was born on the air in D.C. A new superhero that was a blast of fresh air.
I don't remember the first time I did Fartman. I mean, look, I think farting is funny. That's it. I don't know when I created Fartman. I don't know when that was. And really what it was a Fartman in the National Lampoon records. And we used to play the intro to the Fartman. And then I would do the character on the radio. But
So you're admitting you ripped it off from National Lampoon?
Yeah, it is very weird because they did nothing to change it. The character spoke in the same way with a deep echoey voice. So when he says, I don't know when I created it, you didn't create it. That's why you don't know when you created it.
Well, exactly. And I believe it's on something called the White Album, National Lampoon Fartman. It's just a 30-second nothing. Let me see.
It was accompanied by like a full page or 2-page spread comic panel that was done with photographs of this office working guy fantasizing about being a superhero.
Yes. Hold on. It used to be here. Actually, National Lampoon White Album. Yeah, I know I'll be able to find What is God? What turns women on?
Wait a minute. What is God? I wonder if that's got God doing the weather.
Well, interesting. Let's check this out.
Just out of curiosity, I wonder.
Girl walks the streets today. Reverend, can I ask a question? Not now, my son. It's time to pass the plate.
This sounds like the CERN show.
I have a terrible, important question to ask. Yes, I want you all to dig way down deep. But I have got to ask this question. What do you want? Reverend, what is God? Yeah, what is God? What is God? All right. I'm gonna tell you. Pass the plate. God is our mighty fortress, our co-pilot, our guide, judge, father, and alibi.
Okay, now hold on for a second. Let me see, because there's a clip here. I'm going to go back into that in a moment, but let me see if this one is. Let me see if this is the correct one. God sounds like a whiny bitch from Roosevelt.
But even with the format constraints, Howard was constantly finding new ways to deliver the information his bosses demanded of him.
Okay, it is time to contact God here at 748.
Oh, your holiness! Your holiness!
Hey, Howard, I'm ready to do the weather now.
That's Fred.
Yeah.
That's God now.
Yeah.
Wait a second, I got an idea for a new Bible guide.
Yes, my son.
How about a Bible for Valley Girls?
Wait a minute, I think the Bible we have will do just fine. Thank you anyway, Howard.
No. Get this, it's totally to the max for sure. Moses comes down from the mountain and says, gag me with a spoon. But Pharaoh is grody to the max.
But I mean, you're right in terms of the feel. It definitely has. It's something that he's taken from. Anyway, it's not there. The archive might have it, but it was literally a 30-second bit on that album.
Howard's greatest characters was born.
Had some other farting characters too, and then I was shocked that Lampoon had a farting man too, and I was like, wow, everybody's got a. Maybe I'm not.
I was shocked that they had one too. You just
Ridiculous.
said they had one, and then I came up with one. Oh, they have one too. You clearly ripped it off, and people used to give this excuse to Robin Williams that he absorbed material, and then, after he ripped off. He listened to other comics at the Comedy Store and took their bits and did them on the Tonight Show, and then he'd have to pay those comics back and basically give them actually money because they couldn't do those bits anymore. And in this case, in 1992, he bought the rights to Fart Man. Because when he was deciding I need to make the movie, clearly he didn't own the rights. He didn't start Fart Man, and it was something. So he bought it from National Lampoon, and I'm sure National Lampoon was, here, go ahead. We'll give it to you for however much money because it's not worth any of that.
Yeah, the White Album came out in 1980, and he's doing his character in either 80 or 81. So it's not just shocking. It's theft, and it's not them stealing from you.
Yeah.
So original. I don't know, but it was like farting humor was the greatest. I love farting. And to do a character Fart Man, to create a character like that, was just natural to me. That's funny. A man who farts. So what can I tell you? I don't remember how it all came about when the first time I did it and who I called.
Well, I looked online, guys, after the fact and found a 30-second segment of it. I know you can buy it online at Amazon, but I wasn't going to pay $10 for the purpose of this. I did get a 30-second clip, which I think is enough to prove our point.
I'd be a great superhero if I did those things. But I don't. I work in an office, and I don't let anybody know about my fart powers. Would you? Fart Man. Oh, Christ. It's the most embarrassing thing in the world.
The smell of gas around you.
Hello? Uh-oh. Is this who I think it is? Uh-oh, it's Burpman. Well, as most of you know, Burpman is my arch enemy. I'm not really a disc jockey. I'm not a disc jockey. You know who I really am? You know who I really am. I protect all the people. I'm Fart Man! Here to protect all people. Being Fart Man is probably one of the loneliest jobs in America.
There's also like a 5-page color insert in Miss America where he basically it looks like a gay character. He's got thong on, and he insisted on including this in the hardcover, not the little paperbacks, I'm certain. And like it was in that time when it was past the time when the rights he had signed with New Line, and he was going to do it with New Line, but then claimed that the merchandising was a stumbling block. I don't buy that personally. I think it was the longer it went, the more he realized this is a really stupid idea for a movie.
Yeah. Well, are you talking? You're talking about the
Fart Man
VMAs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he showed up.
Yeah. He showed up he showed up as Fart Man for the VMAs, but that was always the first project, Fart Man, and then somehow someone got through to him that this is a stupid idea. And it's not really going to, even after Beavis and Butthead, this is not going to make a lot of money.
I do believe that it was so quickly the way that it happened
Unfolded.
Was he lost his Channel 9 show.
Yep.
And then went on the VMAs, which were filmed in New York, to rebound quickly, and he shows up as Fart Man, which was a character I think he had done one time on his Channel 9 show.
Yeah.
And in the movie Private Parts, it starts off with him in that scene. They don't explain why he's dressed as Fart Man and coming down as Fart Man, other than he just thought he wanted to do something artistic, is how he puts it. But at the actual VMAs, he says, my movie is going to be number one. The movie Fart Man that I'm making is going to be number one at the box office. Then he goes on Jay Leno's show and says it's going to be number one. And it's going to have prostitutes in it. It's going to have all this other stuff in it. It's going to be great. He says the writer who wrote Under Siege wrote it. It's going to be great. It's going to be the number one movie at the box office. he later on says it was all a joke. Oh yeah, I was never going to make a Fartman movie. But Don, I think it was Don Imus's former manager or former entertainment lawyer, I guess it was now the head of New Line Cinemas.
Yeah.
And so that's how Howard had a little in through him. As much as he can go and trash Imus, this guy was his in to New Line Cinemas. And Howard wanted to have Fartman lunchboxes, Fartman T-shirts, Fartman everything. And he wanted to have all the money from it. And the head from New Line was reeling because they had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a huge hit. But they didn't own any of the merchandising, which is where the money was made. So they thought, we're not going to do that again. So we'll make the movie, but we get any merchandising that comes with it. And Howard claims that it was an artistic thing. He also claims it was a joke. I was never really going to do it. But I do believe that it came down to, he was seeing dollar signs. Yes. And this guy who boasts all the time that he never made money on merchandising. He always makes a big, that's a point of pride for him. But I do believe he saw, I'm going to be the next Ninja Turtles, and New Line's being unfair to me.
Well, just after Jimmy Buffett passed away, he had this rant, not a rant, but he just started talking about how he wanted to do merchandising and Don told him not to. And then
I believe that
for the longest time, he said he didn't want to.
Yes.
And Don suggested doing it, whatever. But I'm not sure which way people want to believe, but he would have been happy selling whatever the fuck he wanted. I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think he always
not
wanted
a moral guy.
No.
There's no moral justification for it. I mean, his favorite band, the Beatles, is the most marketed band there ever was. They had
certainly
cake toppers and lunchboxes and everything, and he doesn't begrudge them anything. He wears Rolling Stone T-shirts all the time. So there's no shame in making merchandise that your fans want to buy. I think that Don Buchwald didn't understand merchandise. I always said that Don Buchwald envisioned every criminal in New York being photographed wearing a Baba Booey T-shirt and said, I don't want that because I'm trying to tell advertisers that we're all lawyers and doctors listening to this show, and not advertisers. Program directors and so on, so that you can pay big money for the high earning audience you're going to get here. But, there's nothing about Howard, who was always looking to sell VHS tapes and
1-800 numbers,
books that were just made of transcripts of his radio show. There was nothing about him that's so ethical that says, oh, I can't. That was learned behavior from Buchwald, and I think he accepted it, but with gritted teeth.
Yeah. So this is from the Channel 9 show, the Adventures of Fartman with Adam West.
Very well. Where is Fat Man?
That's not Fat Man. I'm Fart Man. I'm Fart Man. I'm the Prince of Poop, the Baron of Brown Air, and the Master of Methane.
So for the upteenth time, he has to make it a point to expose his buttocks on whatever it is. So it was the concert for not the concert for 9/11, but it was a 9/11 something that had just happened a month later. I can't remember what it was.
The 11/11/11 thing.
Possibly, yeah. And then he did it, of course, as Fartman on stage at the VMAs. But then he did it. I'm trying to think. Like, there's always an excuse for him to want to show his ass cheeks. And you guys call it what you want. I think it's just him wanting to be out of the closet. Personally, it was just an excuse to be able to do it.
But he did it in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Fartman.
Yes.
What an honor to have you in my classroom.
I protect the weak, and I'm great at barbecues. Let me demonstrate.
I've never seen this.
Now, someone else has decided that some other Stern podcast has decided they finally want to go on Patreon, and this is what they want to cover. I can't imagine there's anybody wants to see this for pleasure. I can't imagine anybody wanted to break this down at full length. It's just absolute shit. So pardon the expression, pardon the term, but him hanging his hat on this awful, stupid idea. I mean, there's a reason why it was a minute long on a National Lampoon album, Howard. That's why, and that's why it wasn't an SNL sketch. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't, Coneheads or anything, because it really is a bad idea.
For as complete as I love to be listening to the Howard Stern archives, I cannot bring myself to watch Channel 9 shows. They're are awful. So hard to sit through.
Oh yeah,
They're really uncomfortable.
Yes, uncomfortably bad.
Fart Man has not been with a woman in years. No women dare to get near him. I said no women dare to get near him. The smell just drives them crazy. But because of my special fart powers, I am here to protect Washington and surrounding areas from all evildoers. Is this you, Burp Man? I'm going to challenge you to a battle once and for all that will get rid of you. Boy, you sure... What do you, gargle with sandpaper in the morning? Coca-Cola? All right, are you ready to do battle? You are. That hurt.
Imagine this is what you're listening to on your drive somewhere.
You can understand why the guy called this barnyard radio.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's so funny?
Oh, silent but deadly. Take this. I'm going to have to get tough with you and give you my special machine gun fart.
Yeah, that's about the level of intelligence I suppose you're going to get and wit you're going to get from Howard. I can't play any more of it, guys, even though I clipped 45 more seconds. It's too much.
Oh, my gosh.
The last part here, guys, is the end of the end of the DC 101 stuff.
Despite the renown, Howard faced continual criticism from the management of DC 101 in the form of directives to do this and avoid that. He reacted by firing back during his show. I remember Howard going out of his way to make Jeff his foil, Don Davis, the program director, said. Howard took to calling LeBar Jeff LaFuth on the air.
What's not included there, guys, because there's certain segments of it that, of course, that are completely omitted. This Don Davis says, here was a guy on the radio bitching about his boss. I always thought Goff was really cool about letting him pull stuff. So it's interesting, you know, it's making the boss the adversary. Okay, it's a common Howard staple, but then here's someone saying that, look, this guy was pretty smooth in terms of allowing things to go on. Let's keep going.
Their relationship worsened as contract discussions to keep Howard at DC 101 sputtered along.
Okay, now there's the audio doesn't continue again until the following page, but in the meantime, there's a lot more to be read. It says, although Howard had the advantage of being able to weigh LeBar's salary offers against the riches that awaited him at WNBC, LeBar's apparent ignorance of the New York offer restrained him from going far enough. The truth of the matter is, if Goff had offered him $25,000 a year more, he probably would have stayed, Southmaid said, who of course was Howard's lawyer at the time. In what may have been a variation of his father's frosty office strategy, the general manager clouded the air during negotiations. Goff smoked these foot-long cigars, and he would close the door to his office so that it was god-awful nauseating to be in there with him, Southmaid added. He was a street-tough pain in the ass. He'd say, here's what the offer is, take it or leave it, or he'd say, fuck you, get out of here. He tried to bully people. He tried to bully Howard. It was a poisonous atmosphere. Asked in 1995 to discuss Howard's time at the station, LeBar said it was too long ago and that he did not wish to talk about his former morning man. So, and there is audio of it. I think they're them talking about it on the history of Howard Stern, but we're just going to go through it this way because it's a lot easier. When an Indianapolis disc jockey known as Adam Smasher went to Washington early in 1982 to discuss taking an afternoon job on DC 101, he was put on Howard's show as part of the interview process. Smasher became the prize on that morning's dial-a-date. When he revealed that his name was Asher Ben Ruby and that he was of Greek ancestry, Howard remarked, "Uh-oh, don't anybody in the studio bend over. What are you talking about, Howard? You'd be like, God is loving me." It was typical Howard to gave Smasher a sense that it would be liberating for him too to work at DC 101. At the same time, Smasher heard so much stern slamming of LeBar that he was stunned. Howard was going off big time on Goff, he recalled. "I thought if this guy doesn't get fired, I'll be surprised." Do you want to read the rest of that there?
Sure. Yeah, Howard continued to brace himself with daily transcendental meditation. He talked about it, but he did not proselytize, Cole recalled. That's how he derived his energy. He ascribed it to the meditation. Added Chaconis, "One day Howard was sitting on a bed in my house. I thought he was in a coma, and it freaked me out. I said to him, 'Howard, are you all right?' He opened his eyes for a second and said, 'Yeah, I'm meditating. I'll be done in a minute.' He said it really helped him clear his mind."
Okay, now there's a little more audio. It continues.
The growing tension at DC 101 may have had a lot to do with Howard's ballooning weight.
It says he ate junk, greasy food, Chaconis said. Subs, pizzas, donuts, cold cut sandwiches.
Why would that create tension between him and his boss? Howard, you're eating a lot of junk food. It's making a lot of tension for me around here.
Yeah, well, this is the funny. I'm glad they included this part at least.
After years of being skinny, he became so self-conscious about his weight that he began to wear sweatpants to mask the added pounds. He also had the cover photo on his comedy album retouched so that the leather-suited Howard, his whip brandished over the head of a cowering old woman, did not look so thick in the butt and thighs.
Yeah. I mean, only a woman really cares about this kind of stuff. And the other thing is, do you know how much retouching a photo back in those days would have cost?
Well, it also
Photoshop.
It also explains why he is very familiar with the term airbrush and would always say when he showed a photo of himself, "That's not airbrushed either."
Yes.
Which is so quick to beat you to the accusation, which was no one was going to accuse him of that to begin with. But now you've made me interested. Is this airbrushed?
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one, we're going into finally going into chapter 9, guys. Howard had still not signed a contract to work at WNBC AM, as negotiations over fine points in the deal continued in early '82. His suitors put on an impressive show. When Howard and Southmaid flew to New York, WNBC sent a limousine to pick them up at the airport. They were taken to the RCA building in Rockefeller Center for a tour of the WNBC studios and lunch in the Rainbow Room, the infamous Rainbow Room, guys, whose panoramic view from the 65th floor showcased the nation's largest city. You want to take the next one?
Yeah. Meanwhile, Howard's loyal troops were becoming apprehensive about his future at DC 101 and were wondering where they would be if he left the station. No one knew what was going on, Cole recalled. Howard was keeping very close cards about his plans. The cards were exposed unexpectedly. Is this something you want to stop?
Hold on. This is where I think this is the audio. Let me just check. Hold on. Let me see what I got here. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, Robin.
The cards were exposed unexpectedly in March 1982. Newspapers reported that Howard was heading to WNBC after his contract expired at the end of July.
You can continue from there until,
Okay. LeBar, whose station had a contractual relationship with NBC Radio's youth-oriented news service, The Source, told the Washington Post that he had not spoken to NBC, and he emphasized that Howard was still under contract. Clearly, he had been blindsided by the news.
So Howard, who gave Stuttering John all kinds of shit for, and really he claimed he was mad at Leno, but he was mad at both of them. Let's not mince words. Yep. He had to say to John while he was still there, "No, I don't blame you for doing it." No, he does. And he wanted to tank that deal. And it came out after the fact. He tanked Artie's deal with getting an audition with the Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn.
And you and I have a mutual friend, and you know the story where Howard did stop somebody from getting a gig, and called someone and stopped somebody from getting a gig. And I'm not going to mention the name, but you know it.
Okay,
but you know it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes,
You mentioned the gig. No.
and Artie knows it well.
It's actually a very awkward situation he's talking about.
Yes, but Howard did prevent somebody from getting a gig after they told him about it.
Look, he's a very powerful guy.
So
people are, because, he's almost like a modern-day Walter Winchell. People are scared of getting on his wrong side.
So knowing that.
Stuttering John goes on Artie's podcast and talks about, look, that Howard did this to somebody else. He would have absolutely tried to ruin my attempt at getting the job at the Tonight Show. He was just pissed off that he didn't get a chance to scuttle it, because he absolutely did the same thing to Artie the year after John left. So there's proof positive that even though Stuttering John might be a wet brain, lush, asshole, drunk loser now, that doesn't mean he was lying about what his motivation for keeping it from Howard. So Howard here doing the same thing to DC 101.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was, and actually, it says here in the next paragraph, Sherman said the announcement had been withheld to give Howard time to inform LaBar. Mm-hmm. The NBC radio executive said he felt bad that LaBar had learned about Howard's plans from the press. So they agreed that Howard was going to inform the guy before they announced it, made the press release, and Howard didn't do it.
Yep.
Howard's radio partners were deflated by the revelation that they would not be going with him.
The word in the book is crushed. I wonder why they had to change that.
It?
Yeah. Fioravanti, the WNBC general manager, revealed as much during a meeting in Washington. Sherman stated bluntly that NBC was interested in Howard alone. No insult intended, but I don't know who Fred Norris is, he told the Post. We have had no discussion at NBC about the potential value of Robin Quivers.
Yeah. Now, when Howard got to go spin this story, he told them, "Oh, they tricked me. They tricked me. They went back on it. You got to believe me." And I don't know if they believe him or not, but they've at least tried to convince the rest of us that they believe him. That, you know what, they agreed to this, they got it all in the contract, and then they backstabbed him.
Yep. So I'm going to play.
We know that's not that Howard wasn't fighting for them. He was Howard first, Howard only.
Well, this is the thing. Let's go with any walk of life, any job you're thinking of in your life, in your history. When you sign on the dotted line, you know that the contract is the contract. And if you sign for yourself, what in God's name makes any sane, rational person who's an adult think that it also includes other people when they don't sign the same contract?
Yeah, you put it in you would. Yeah, exactly. Right. You just gonna have them take whatever you agreed they would get paid without even letting them know.
Yep. So I'm going to start playing this from Quivers of Life. It's called Howard Fucks His Coworkers. Give me one moment. Okay.
I really thought the restlessness and unhappiness of my past were gone. But just when you think you've got all the bases covered, someone steps up to the plate and smacks a line drive right into the hole in center field. Okay. I believe this is in I think it's 166 in Quivers of Life, if you have that book. Yeah, I believe so. Hold on. If not there, it was actually before then. Yeah, sorry. It was in chapter 11. Sorry, my mistake. Somewhere in let's see. Page 159 possibly. Yeah, okay. I'm not exactly sure because again, it's truncated so badly in that book. So anyway, but it is from the audiobook. By this time, we had the #2 radio show in town, yet we were still collecting losers' wages. Howard had entered into negotiations with Goff LaBar, the station manager from hell, and because of the level of tension between them, I could tell that the discussions weren't going well. Finally, he told me that he and Goff hadn't been able to come to terms and that he was looking at other offers. In fact, Jerry Nachman, the general manager from the all-news station who had praised me so lavishly, turned out to be the batter who would hit that ball into that center field hole. He wanted us to come to work for him, but the next thing we knew, Howard was no longer talking to Jerry, who understood and loved the show. He was talking to the NBC brass in New York. These titans of broadcasting saw Howard in the #1 market in America, New York, at their flagship station, WNBC. Howard was ecstatic. He had always dreamed of working in his hometown. Right from the start, Howard wanted Fred and me to be a part of the negotiation. The smooth-talking NBC radio execs assured him that they'd meet with his people as soon.
Well, if he wanted you to be in with them, why weren't you already there?
Yeah.
Like, the narrative is completely bent and out of, like, into nothingness. I mean, it makes no sense.
Mhm.
Like if you're on board with these people, what you do in those negotiations is you say they're part of the team. If they're not on, I'm not signing. And if you know you have that leverage, the thing is, he didn't know he had that leverage. He was desperate. He's like, I don't care what happens to these people. I want to be in New York. Me.
These people, meaning like Robin, who he'd only known for a year and 2 months or something like that. Not
Yes.
very long.
And who was paired with him. He didn't choose her.
Yes. Right.
Denise Oliver said, like, we think that he needed someone. He needed someone desperately.
Right. And my theory is that Howard, didn't recognize Robin's strength. It wasn't until his father pointed out to him,
Yes.
she's really a good foil to you, that he realized it. But Robin said something that made me smirk at the beginning, which is when I said I'm laughing at certain things. I mean, her book, I have it highlighted like crazy, and I haven't looked at this in years. But you can almost like the parts that aren't highlighted are really easier to find than the parts that are highlighted.
Yeah.
But she says, just days ago, like the Three Musketeers, we had been celebrating Howard's contract as the harbinger of good times for all of us. Now it looked as if just one of the Musketeers was going to claim the glory we'd fought to win together. So Robin viewed Howard as, you're just one of the Three Musketeers. You're not the leader, and us to be the followers.
Right.
There are some other really great things too, where she says, I had been a complete idiot ever to trust another human being. What did I expect Howard to do when the big money offers came? Protect me? People only meant what they said when it was easy. It served me right to be in this position, my nose pressed against the glass, watching the parade pass me by.
This
woman had
overly
only
dramatic.
known him for a little while, had only been in radio for a little while.
Yeah.
As soon as they
felt so entitled.
Oh, sorry. Well, that was it. And also, but I mean, that's the narrative she wanted for the book, but it was, and when what Kayla and I covered so far is the pre-promotion of the book, and it's coming out, and Howard having read it, he goes, I don't think you should release this. And part of the reason he didn't want this out there was because this was going to be exposed. Yeah, like his narrative in Private Parts of the book, it's very short, as you might expect, because it doesn't paint him in a good light if he told the real story. So we're going to continue with it.
And that's just what they did. After Howard had signed on the dotted line, they flew into Washington to talk to Fred and me. The day of the meeting, Fred, Howard, his lawyers, and I were all ushered into a big boardroom at the NBC offices in D.C. to meet the general manager, Dom Fioravanti, and program director, Kevin Matheny. The meeting ended with everyone smiling false smiles and shaking hands. Then Fred, Howard, and I walked out together. Fred was the first to speak once we were alone. What a pair of barracudas, he remarked. Yeah, I chimed in. Real sharks. Howard felt awful that the meeting had gone so badly and swore that he was going to get Dom and Kevin on the phone as soon as possible to straighten out the whole mess.
Well, so they met them, but they don't explain how the meeting went. Like, they're just saying, oh, these are sharks. Fred wouldn't know what a fucking barracuda was. He wasn't in the business that long either. And it's not like he was dealing with all kinds of, like he was some talent being shipped around from, station to station. And then so the storytelling here is horrendous. Really what I want is an account of that meeting. And she's not giving me all the details. Like, what did they say to make you think they're barracudas?
That's funny that you say that, because what she took was the build up to the story and then the fallout of the story. But where's the story?
Right.
They ushered us into the prologue after the meeting.
Nothing like hearing the prologue and the epilogue and leaving the actual meeting. What do you call it?
Reflecting on the actual story.
Right.
Like, boy, those guys sure. But what did they say to you?
Yeah. Do you remember? Did you ever watch Benny Hill?
Yeah. when I was a kid.
Okay, there was one sketch where he's, I don't know, some drama, whatever, but set on some cruise liner or some ocean liner. He'd done this before. They would edit it in such a way that certain words were omitted to make it sound like he'd said something really risque, and it was just a shitty edit. It just said director of continuity so and so, and whole chunks were missing to make it sound differently than it really was. I'm getting tired to out of the porthole. The edit is so awful. It's clear it's done purposely like that. This is the same concept. Like you've taken out every hook. The entire hook is gone. Take the chorus out of your song. No one cares about the lyrics.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a technique, because if they had said in that meeting, there's no chance for you. You guys are not coming with us, whatever. She would have, if they had been led on, she would have told us, she would have said to us, they told us, you guys are part of this team. We're going to make this work, whatever. But they didn't say that. So instead, what we do is attack their character rather than what they actually said.
Yep.
He was still sure everything would be okay, but that wouldn't be the case. Dom and Kevin stopped returning his calls. When word hit the street that Howard was going to New York, one of the first questions asked was, what about Robin and Fred? Howard dodged that one as much as possible because none of us was sure of the answer.
Okay, hold on. Let me see the other one.
Meanwhile, back at DC 101, Goff made no secret of resenting Howard's good fortune and called me into his office. I could honestly tell him that I wasn't talking to anyone at NBC. Goff asked me what it would take to keep me. I told him I'd get back to him. Immediately after leaving Goff's office, I called Howard's attorneys, who were functioning as my silent coaches, and asked for their advice, then went back to Goff and demanded $100,000. Okay, he responded. Okay, this was not part of the game plan. As a stalling tactic, I'd quoted him what the lawyers and I had decided was an outrageous price. Goff put a 5-year deal on the table that would pay me $75,000 the first 2 years and the full $100,000 each of the last 3. This did not improve my situation at all. Howard was still trying to talk some sense into the people at NBC, and when I told Howard about Goff's offer, he was bewildered. Robin, Howard began, I was hoping to be able to make the whole New York deal happen, but I can't tell you to turn down that kind of money. So I should take it, I asked with a sinking heart. Yeah, he told me with obvious regret. I guess you have to.
Okay, so there's a little more here in the back to the Colford book, guys, because it goes through the chapter 9 and chapter 8. It skips around so much. So here we go.
His furtive maneuvers to leave DC 101 and the newfound realization that she was not part of his future hurt Robin deeply. She was angry because her career had been taking off. She had been a dominant presence on Howard's show, his conscience, foil, and straight woman, and now she was being left behind. She looked for other radio work in Washington, but found that she had been typecast.
Okay, it continues here. News stations considered her tainted and questioned whether she had the credibility to do hard news. Personality-oriented stations declined to hire Robin because of a misguided perception that she was simply a news person, or a news reader, as the case may be. Then the next little bit of audio.
Well, do you want to hear really quickly
go ahead.
What became of the $450,000 that Robin was offered?
Well,
she says,
I think I have it. Let me see if I've got it. It's this one. Next clip is called, Crumbling Under the Pressure of Fat.
As it became clearer and clearer that everything I'd worked for was crashing down around me, I started having mini panic attacks. Then I collapsed. I lost my voice and missed almost 3 weeks on the air. As the doctor explained it, I was a mess physically as well as emotionally. The strain of all the fighting over the past years had sent me right to the refrigerator, and my pounding heart was caused by high blood pressure. The doctor told me that if I didn't lose weight, stop smoking, and calm down in a month, he'd be forced to put me on medication that I would have to take for the rest of my life. Here I was, not even 30, and my body was falling apart. My heart was beating out of my chest. I couldn't sleep, and I was addicted to nicotine. Yep, definitely crumbling under the pressure.
Okay, this next one is from the same. I have nothing if I don't have Jew.
I asked Goff for some time off to take care of myself. For the next 2 weeks, I meditated, dieted, and quit smoking. I even put on a jogging suit. I slowly started to work up to a mile-a-day walk. By the time I returned to the doctor's office, I had lost 10 pounds, given up cigarettes, and my blood pressure was normal. During the 2 weeks off, I'd come to the decision that I had to sign Goff's contract. But when I went into his office and told him I was ready to make it official, Goff informed me that I was too late. The deal was off the table. Now I had nothing.
I thought it was 5 weeks in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are incapable of monitoring time, and the editor should have noticed this.
Yes.
So she didn't show up to work for almost 3 weeks because she lost her voice, she says.
That's right.
So then Goff thinks she's faking it and says, I need you to go to get me a doctor's note.
Yes.
So then the doctor tells her, oh, your body's falling apart. You need to relax for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 5 weeks, I guess, go by.
I think it's 5 weeks. And of course,
The
that's
initial offer.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to go through that because we had to figure out the timeline, the chronology. So let me just see right here.
Oh, this is really rich too. She says, when I went into his office and told him I was ready to make it official, Goff informed me that it was too late. The deal was off the table. I was also informed that during my time away, he'd signed someone to take Howard's place. All the boss from hell could promise me now was a chance to try out for the sidekick job. I almost laughed. Now I had nothing. So now he's back to being the boss from hell. A second ago, you're like, you know what? He's offering me a fortune. This is awesome. I'm going to take it. And he goes, no, you've blown it. Oh, you're the boss from hell.
Yeah. Well, the other thing was she didn't have a representation. She had to use Howard's lawyer to represent her, or she could or say, look, I need your advice. I don't even think it was advice. It was more like, look, we'll talk to them on your behalf, but we're doing this as a favor to Howard or whatever. And so they did it. And then they accept the job. What do you do in that situation? You either accept it or you're allowed probably a little, I'm sure they gave her reasonably a week to make a decision, but they're not going to wait weeks and weeks and weeks while they have somebody that they need to fill that position right then and there.
Yeah. It's funny too that her instinct is to go to Howard's lawyer when Howard's lawyer was not battling for her initially.
No.
Right. And now she goes, oh, okay, he's the guy who I should turn to. And then she would just go and follow him to Buckwald. Oh, you go to Buckwald? No, I'll go to Buckwald. I'm sure he'll fight for me just as hard as he fights for you, considering he's fighting for my money from your paycheck.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, of course, the idea that, okay, so I gave them a number and they met it. And now what do I do? So to me, it sounds like it was just fear based with her and him as well. Like with Howard going to WNBC, there was no way he was going to risk losing that opportunity to work at WNBC in New York if I say I insist, like it's me, Robin, and Fred or nothing, they might just say nothing because it is New York.
Well, I'm also just thinking, so this is ridiculous. She claims she lost her voice for 3 weeks. That's ridiculous. So then her boss goes, you know what? I need you to give me a doctor's note. She comes up with a doctor's note that says, "Excuse Robin, she's fat."
Right.
That doesn't mean you lose your voice for 3 weeks.
No. You could lose it because of there are loads of reasons why you could lose your voice. Strep throat. What's the laryngitis, what have you. Yep. But that doesn't last 3 weeks.
Bronchitis. But the doctor would come back and say something like that. Not Robin needs to lose weight.
Right. And she's got to give up smoking. Yeah.
Screaming voices of self-loathing and recrimination flooded my thoughts. I had been a complete idiot to ever trust another human being. Howard gradually became the focus of all my rage. In my mind, the man I knew was dead. I refused to speak to him or take his calls. When he insisted on trying to find out what was wrong, I sat down at my typewriter in the newsroom and composed a letter. I called him names I knew would hurt and accused him of things I knew he hadn't done. Every other word was fuck or motherfucker. And to top things off, I accused him of being a racist. Looking back, I realized that I didn't mean any of what I wrote. I just needed him to stay away. I started looking for another job. I figured I'd go back to straight news, and I took a job as a reporter and substitute anchor at WCBM.
Yeah, we're almost at that. Let me just play the rest of this audio here on the Colford thing.
DC 101
Yeah.
eventually offered Robin a deal to remain, but she decided to leave instead.
Okay, so this one is called Robin Joins WCBM.
At the end of June, she returned to Baltimore, joining WCBM AM as a reporter.
Okay, so then you don't hear anything. Page 86 and 87 and 88 and 89 are completely omitted by the audio. So it says here, I met with the program director of WNBC and congratulated him on getting Howard, Douglas remembered. This is down at the bottom of 86. I also said that the station deserved the award for asshole blunder of the universe because they hadn't hired Robin too. However, Robin's rise with Howard had been so vigorous and so fatiguing that I don't think she pressed him to bring her along. She needed time off. Radio personalities usually move to their next job abruptly and without warning, or they were fired by management and told to exit immediately without being able to say goodbye to their listeners. Cut and burn. This was different. Howard had 4 more months on his contract. Having a, quote, lame duck for a morning man created an awkward situation at DC 101. The station now had to fill a huge hole in its schedule and faced advertisers' concerns about making long-term commitments to the most important time period. Part of the frustration was that the station was beginning to reap the financial rewards of Howard's ratings, said program director Don Davis. In addition, LeBar and Davis feared that Howard might become even less restrained on the air now that he had the security of a New York job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, though, that Robin just breezes over the fact that she is admitting now, oh, I made up stuff and said stuff that I knew wasn't true. And on top of that, I called him a racist. Think of that in 2024. A black woman goes out and says her Jewish boss, Jewish coworker, whatever, is racist. That's it for him. It's curtains. You're canceled. It's done for you. So Robin knew what she was doing and did it to hurt him. This is why I say, remember that whenever you think about what she says about her father, that she's capable and willing. And the only reason she admits, or at least claims, that I was lying, oh, it wasn't true, nothing bad, Howard was actually the greatest guy in the world, is because she was getting well paid by working for him at the time that she wrote this book.
Well, right. But also, like, if he's a racist before he signs with WNBC, then you're bought and paid for stooge for a racist, and you know it.
Right. So really what she's saying is, you are temporarily buying, me on a leash.
My loyalty.
And as soon as I face any kind of discomfort, I'm off the leash. I turn around and I'll bite my master. That's our agreement.
Right, as opposed to just saying, look, we had to go a different way. He signed this, and I have to go work for so and so, or I'm going to make my own way, and I don't wish him nothing but the best. So clearly, there's no amicability there. I mean, there was nothing about it that suggests that it was a polite schism. It says here, I was pissed off that Howard and Goff were fighting, recalled Douglas, who helped bring Howard to the station. I knew it was personal between them. Behind the scenes, Douglas was lining up Howard's successor. We really wanted Howard to stay until the end of his contract, Davis added. We tried to have an uneasy truce so we could convert his ratings into revenue. In most ways, Howard tried to be professional about the fact that he was leaving, but he said on the air what the general manager's compensation package was, a 6-figure sum. It was too much for me to sit still for. Goff didn't mind being made fun of, but I had a shorter fuse, especially when Howard crossed over into personal territory. The guy that would not admit that he lied about the gubernatorial race when he threw his hat in for whatever it was to run for governor, and then claimed, oh, they wanted me to disclose my financial earnings when they didn't. They only wanted him to mark down he earned more than $250,000 or whatever, which was obvious at that point. And claims he never wants to discuss his own salary, was more than happy discussing the salary of his boss. I mean, that'll get you shit canned easily.
Yeah.
You want to read the rest of that?
The station also was facing a kind of death watch for Howard's show that threatened to sour the prospects of whoever succeeded him and to drive away listeners after he was gone. As the crucial spring ratings period neared the end, Howard received written instructions from management. He could not mention other radio stations. His superiors still had not learned that Howard was likely to respond to a direct order by resisting it, as though he were a child determined to sneak a macaroon from the cookie jar after his parents had denied him one. Macaroon from the cookie jar. Sure enough, Howard lashed out at a pair of stations in the Midwest that he claimed had ripped off 2 of his bits. How is he aware of that, by the way?
He wouldn't know. There's no way of knowing. Like yes, people did tape off the radio, but it was very uncommon for the most part. Like, you know, and then later on people figured out you could actually hook up your VCR to record like 6 hours of audio to, you know, if you wanted to. But yeah, it says after a rocky, albeit profitable 15 months of Howard, this infraction appeared to be the final straw. On June 25th, 1982, disc jockey Asher Ben Ruby happened to be in Washington for a briefing about the afternoon job that he accepted at DC 101. Listening to Howard's show, he thought that the morning man sounded angrier than he had seemed during the newcomer's previous visit. As the disc jockey remembers, the morning Howard was calling LeBar Goof LeBouf and complained that he had been mistreated by the general manager. Jesus, we've not heard this before. So Howard doing whatever he can to basically get fired, get paid for free, which would happen at WNBC as well, and then act like a martyr later on when he claims, oh, you know, they fired me from such and such. Yeah, most places would, and you know that.
Yeah. And he's not really being risky. He's got a great safety net under him.
That's exactly right. You're right. There's no scare about that. But I remember there was audio, I just clipped it not long ago, about him saying, you know, when I got fired at WNBC, I had nothing. I had no money in the bank. Dude, you were still getting paid $400,000 a year in 1984 dollars or 1984 dollars, I think, to you know, sit on your ass for a year and a half, I think it was, or an extra 2 years.
Yeah.
So
it was the very beginning of a newly rewritten contract. So he had, I think he had 2 full years left of that kind of money.
Yep. That was when he switched from South Maid to Buchwald.
Yep.
Okay, so it says here, when Ben Ruby arrived at the DC 101 studios for his 10 a.m. meeting with management, he was told to wait, a delay that stretched to 90 minutes as Howard received and made sense of a memo signed by Davis stating that he was suspended. By the time Ben Ruby met with Davis, the new afternoon talent, even though it's misspelled afternoon talent, that's better, afternoon, he was asked to take over the morning show for an interim period starting July 5th. A memo given to the station's receptionist said, if anyone calls on the phone to ask where Stern is or what happened to him, you are to reply that Howard is no longer on the air at DC 101. You want to continue?
Yeah, but I just want to say really quickly, because you just reminded me of this Buchwald thing for a second.
Sure.
As I've pointed out so many times that, you know, Howard just has had the greatest fortune of anyone in radio. And there's no better proof of that than the fact that when he got fired from WNBC, he had a contract negotiated for him that he would be paid, you know, like you said, $400,000 a year for the next 2 years. And that was because that was Buchwald's first act as his agent. And the Buchwald actually went against his own normal practices because Howard said, I don't want to pay you until you've done something for me, rather than hire you first to go do something for me. And Buchwald said, it's not done that way. You have to hire me first, then I'll work for you. But Buchwald did it anyway. And it ended up saving Howard's life. And anyway, the guy
and then, not only that, he just gave his, as he calls him, he gave him an obituary, and not a eulogy, when Don passed away recently. And he mentioned about, he was so naive about the business. And it wasn't naive. It wasn't naivety. It was cheapness. He said, I'm not paying you 10% of what I make. And Don, he said, Don, yeah. And he said, Don told him, look, I'm just going to presume you're an idiot and forgive this. Normally I'd have you thrown out of my office for something like that, but I'm going to, you know, we'll find a way to work around this. And so I don't know if that meant Don wasn't going to take the 10% off of his contract or what. I have no idea how he worked it out. Maybe he made it 5% or something that one time or something like that. But Don wisely knew like there was better money to be had from this person. He knew that the money would come if he could get this person the right kind of contract, and he did. And eventually, but Howard admitting that he was too stupid and cheap to forego with a single one of his marbles. That was astounding to me. Anybody with a basic knowledge of the business, I'm talking about people who watch movies, know that agents take a percentage of your earnings. That's just the way it is. So there's a bit more here. Yeah. So from
starting with Days Later.
A memo.
Oh, memo. Okay, sure.
Oh, sorry. So sorry. Days Later. You're right.
Okay. Days later, the station officially confirmed that it had hired Adam Smasher and a new morning host, a graphic storyteller known as the Grease Man. In other words, Howard's success had cleared the way for two more high-profile talents to join a music station. And the Grease Man is the guy who Howard stole his Vietnam veteran character from.
Yep.
Where he would just, on a whim, make up finding these gook skull necklaces or earrings and things like that, a necklace made of ears and all that. It's all comes from Grease Man stories.
Yep.
Which were really scripted and had an arc. Like they would have a setup and then a punchline to them. I've heard a few of them online, and they're done in storytelling format. So it's like him doing these flashbacks as a character with sound effects. Yep. And they have a point to the story. Howard just recalls the most graphic stuff and just says, oh yeah, and then I would do this, and then I blew up a bunch of kids, and then I did this. But like that would have been the punchline basically in a Grease Man story. Like that would have been his last heroic act, ironically, is blowing up this thing of kids. So anyway, he totally missed that there was a storytelling to these Grease Man bits, and instead only focused on the most graphic things. I was thrilled to be working for WWDC, and I love my audience, Howard told the Washington Post. I'm sorry I'm not being given a chance to say goodbye to them. I'm really shocked and disappointed. So this is the second city in a row where he's had to go to the press and say, oh, my audience, I'm sorry I can't go on and say goodbye to you. Mm-hmm. He did the same thing in Detroit. When the station's attorney made it official that the quote, suspension was permanent, Howard took the opportunity to bid farewell in interviews sought by other local radio stations. He spoke by phone to Elliott and Woodside on WRQX and visited Surfy, a disc jockey on WAVA-FM, which competed with DC 101. LeBar cut his station's ties to NBC's The Source. Fred Norris held on to his job. Similarly, he would do the same thing at WNBC.
Yep.
Doing production work and air shifts. Allison went to New York to find a place where she and Howard would reside. Howard moved in with Steve Chaconis. Is that where he saw him meditating, you think? I guess so, yeah. And finished business in Washington, including a farewell extravaganza that a local promoter was planning at the Capitol Center. Howard and his cohorts were to be paid for their participation in various stunts, such as a hot dog eating contest in which blindfolded women were to eat Franks placed strategically in front of the men's crotches. However, because Howard no longer was on the air to hype the event, ticket sales were sluggish and the evening was canceled. Instead, so they didn't actually do the hot dog thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's scheduled, but no, they and I mean that doesn't surprise me. I mean, but if he had a fan base and they were turned off by what they perceived to be the radio station fucking him, then yeah, they probably just boycott by not going.
Yeah. I don't know how they would have gotten the word out that they were doing it. I guess they could have advertised in local papers or something.
Yeah.
Instead, WAVA-FM helped put together a raucous send-off for Hundreds at Numbers, a nightclub located near DC 101. Howard entered to the theme from the movie Rocky and mooned the crowd. You know what's funny is that when Robin promoted her book's release, she did it to the theme song from Rocky. She was dressed up as a boxer. She drove down streets of Manhattan on the back of a flatbed truck, holding up these golden boxing gloves to promote this book about her dad molesting her. To the tune of Rocky. Like Rocky, Howard was going out in triumph. In the July issue of Washingtonian, the magazine's annual Best and Worst edition, he was named the best disc jockey in town and appeared in a cover shot wearing devil's horns.
I love the fact that, of course, like we just got through playing the Channel 9 thing of him, with his ass exposed in this fart man suit, which was, it's interesting that he had to insist on it every time they made this suit. And then it says, when Howard entered to the theme from the movie Rocky and Moon, the crowd. And all I was thinking was,
I'll go for the fair.
a little Paul Lynch.
Showing off the butt that he was so worried about that he had airbrushed.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see what it's got here. Okay, in his final report card, the spring ratings showed that he had delivered his best numbers in Washington, claiming a huge 8% share, there you go, of the morning listening audience. He was right about that. He had more than tripled the ratings during his brief stay. He was ranked 3rd, so he wasn't number 1.
What? So then, obviously, someone had higher than 8%.
Right.
2 people.
He was ranked 3rd behind AM's top-rated team of Frank Harden and Jackson Weaver, the long-standing champs, and WKYS-FM's Donnie Simpson. The ratings.
These aren't even news stations. Sorry to cut you off. These were personalities.
Yeah. So what about so where was he? What is he number 1 for his radio
for his
station?
demographic or for his purposes? Is that what they always say?
Yeah, maybe. That was a Jaggy line. I was thinking he was number 1 in the Howard Stern category for disc jockeys. The ratings in response for the recognition within the industry had all come together, forming a solid foundation as Howard prepared for the challenge of New York radio. I think when I was in Washington, I was convinced I had it all figured out. Really? Hold on. I've got a clip. Okay, I've got a clip somewhere. I think we'll play it in the next episode. But Ray gets on the History of Howard Stern and says, he called us and asked, do you think I should go? Why would you ask your parents if you had this confidence that you thought you could make it, and ask them what they thought?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the last bit here of the I keep saying unit. Sorry, guys. Maybe Howard's the one thinking about units. Doug, the Greaseman tract, who had been a top 40 disc jockey on Washington's WRC-AM until 1973, ended a 7-year run on WAPE-AM in Jacksonville, Florida. He was wooed back to the Capitol to take over Howard's show by a $1 million 5-year contract, so $200 a year, what he'd get at WNBC to start.
Yeah, that's what he started with. Yeah.
Yeah, his specialty was the vividly told tale. Many were dark inventions, and others reflected a macho swagger in Grease himself. All of his stories were enlivened by carefully chosen sound effects, as Benjamin mentioned just now. Soon after returning, he took his listeners into the basement of DC 101, there to behold the artifacts of programs past. In one dusty corner, he found Howard Stern's shrunken head in a glass jar. That's great. So, guys, when we get into the WNBC, that's chapter 10. When we get into that, it's a lot of Imus stuff. It's going to, if you're wondering why it's taking so long to get through these, is because there's a whole history of untruths throughout his career, but never more so than when he does this revisionist history about his own times at these stations and claims. Like, I mean, they said he's number 1 on History of Howard Stern, but here in the Colford book, it says he was number 3.
Yeah. Right. And that no one had ever seen an 8-share before.
Yeah, exactly. So any closing thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No closing thoughts. I enjoyed it as always.
And you're tempted to get back into the ring with Robin for segments?
Just cracking open that book for the first time and realizing how many paragraphs I have highlighted in this thing. I mean, I skipped a bunch here, obviously, but I'm just thumbing through it now. I mean, you see tons of highlighted things in here. So, I guess maybe I could be persuaded to go back. If you alert me that you're in some territory that's captivating, maybe I will jump in and join you for one.
Okay, fair enough. We'll see. And also see if the scheduling works for you in terms of day and stuff, because we usually record during the week with I usually record during the week with Kayla around 8 p.m. Eastern time. But possibly you could finagle like at least an appearance at some point, like a 15. You could do 20 minutes or something like that. That would be fun. At any rate, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we love you. Take care wherever you are.
People are coming to the house. My wife is upstairs crying. I think you should tell your godfather what everybody else seems to know. I want all inquiries made. I want no acts of vengeance. I want you to call all the heads of the 5 families.
Oh, no.
Because